Salesforce has given governing limits. Name some of the governing limits. Short call queries. Maximum number of short call queries within a transaction, 100. Maximum number of DML statements within a transaction, 150. Maximum number of records on which I can make a DML rows. DML rows. And how many records we can make a DML operation? 10,000. Then number of feature values within a transaction. Number of features. Like this, governing limits are imposed on the every function. Now, according to my business, I have a requirement like this. What is my requirement? Fetch all the opportunities whose stage name is closed one and update close date as true. This is my requirement. What is my requirement? Fetch all the opportunities whose stage name is closed one and update close date as today. Close date as today. But when I wrote the circle query, I got 23,000 records. How many records I received? 23,000 records. But according to the governing limits, on how many records I can make an update? 10,000. But how many records we are getting? 23,000. Then what happened? It throws an exception called too many DML rows. But according to your requirement, you have to update. According to your requirement, you have to update 23,000. But we are getting only what? We can only update 10,000 records according to this transaction. But according to your requirement, you have to make an update on 23, which is not possible. How will you achieve this? How will you achieve this? Right. Next one. Now, according to my requirement, I told fetch all the opportunities which are owned by the users whose role is who belongs to role and subordinates of and reassign them to. I told fetch all the opportunities which are owned by the users who belongs to role and subordinates of manager. I told fetch all the opportunities which are owned by the users who belongs to the role and subordinates of manager. When I wrote the circle query, I got 40,000 records. How many records I have to modify? 40,000 records. But according to the governing limits, how many records you can update? 10,000. Then how will you achieve? So, according to the governing limits, we can only update 10,000 records, but you have a requirement where you need to update more than 10,000 records. How will you achieve this? Then we are going for a concept called. So when you want to override the governing limits, you have to look for the alternate solution. The alternate solution is what? Batch-1. What is the Batch-1? It is a asynchronous operation. Batch-1 is what? Asynchronous operation. What is the Batch-1? It is a asynchronous operation. What is the Batch-1? It is a asynchronous operation. What the Batch-1 will do? Look at the operation. What the Batch-1 will do? Will break the operation. Let us say there are 1,000 accounts. I told fetch all the opportunities of these accounts and delete. I told fetch all the opportunities of the accounts. How many accounts we have? 1,000 accounts. What is your business requirement? Delete all the opportunities of these 1,000 accounts. How many records we have? 1,000 only. But how many records we are trying to delete? Opportunities of this account. 1,000 opportunities may have number of opportunities. Let us say every opportunity has 10. Every account has 10 opportunity. Every account has 50 opportunity. Now, total number of opportunities which are created for this account is 25,000. When you say delete all the accounts with the corresponding opportunities, delete all the opportunities of the accounts, delete all the opportunities of these 1,000 accounts. Now, for these 1,000 accounts, there are 25,000 opportunities are there. Now, what will happen? it will throw exception. We cannot delete more than 10,000 records. Then what I'm doing? We are taking the operation. Whatever the operation is there, we are breaking this operation into number of batches. Operation is broken down into number of batches. Operation is broken down into number of batches. So here we have taken 200, 100. The operation is broken down into what? Number of batches. Now, all the batches are running parallelly. The operation is broken down into number of batches and all the batches are going to run parallelly. Now, when all these batches are running parallelly, let us understand. If entire operation is running as a single method, then how many sample queries I can write? 100. How many DML? 150. On how many records I can work? 10,000. But now what did I do? I broke this operation into number of batches. When I am running all the batches parallelly, every batch will have what? 100 DMLs, 100 samples, 150 DML, 10,000. This batch also has what? 100 DMLs, 100 samples, 150 DML, 10,000. Now when you broke them into number of batches and you are running every batch individually, then what is happening? Every batch is having a separate set of bounding limits. Every batch is getting what? A fresh set of bounding limits. If you are running all of them together, for entire operation, number of sample queries, 100. Number of DML, 150. Number of records, 10,000. But I am not running the entire operation as a single operation. I am breaking the operation into number of batches. Running every batch independently. When you are running every batch independently, every batch will have what? 100 sample queries, 150 DMLs, 10,000 records. People are getting a point here. We are breaking the operation to number of batches, running all the batches independently from each other. Running all the batches independently from each other. When you run all the batches independently from each other, what is the advantage? What is the advantage? Every batch will have fresh set of bounding limit. Now batch 1, 10,000 records. Batch 2, 10,000 records. Batch 3, 10,000 records. So how many batches are there? 5 batches. Maximum on how many records they can work? 50,000 records. If I am running like a single one, on how many records I can work? 10,000. So what is the concept of batch mix? Break the larger operation to number of batches and run all the batches independently from each other. Break the operation to number of batches, run all the batches independently from each other. So what is the advantage? Every batch can have its own set of governing limits. This is how we can bypass the governing limits exception. People are followed. What is the concept of batch mix? Break the operation to number of batches, run all the batches independently from each other. Break the operation to number of batches, run the operation independently from each other. Now, how to break operation to number of batches? How to break the operation to number of batches? To do that, first we need to go for database.batchable interface. What is the interface we have? Database. If any class, if you want to run a class like a batch, if you want to run any Apex class like a batch, if you want to run any Apex class like a batch, if you want to run any Apex class like a batch, what should I do? Break the class. Okay, what should I do? Class should implement a database.batchable interface. So global class example implements database dot. What is the interface you have to implement? Database dot batchable interface. If you want to run a batch, if you want to run a class like a batch, if you want to run a class like a batch, class has to implement a database dot batchable interface. I told you, whenever we are implementing an interface, automatically what should I do? Define all the methods in the interface. What are the methods we have? Start, execute. What are the 3 methods that are defined in the batchable interface? I told you in the last session. If a class is implementing a interface, all the methods in the interface has to be redefined. What are the methods we have? Start, execute, finish. Start, execute, finish. What are the three methods? Start method, execute method, finish method. Now, what is the purpose of the start method? Start method. What is the purpose of start method? This method will fetch. I'll give the hard copy. Listen. This method will fetch all the. This method will fetch all the records on which we want to run the logic. Start method, what it does? It will fetch all the records on which we want to run the logic. Now, what is the syntax of the start method? Global database dot query locator. Start database dot batch. What is the syntax? Database dot query locator or iterable, any one I have to use. Now start. Now when do you go for database dot query locator? Generally when you write a query, how many records we are going to get? When you write a query, how many records we are going to get? 50,000 records. Sample query will give you how many records? 50,000. But if you use a database dot query locator, 50 million records will give. How many records it is going to give you? 50 million records. Generally, when you write a sample query, how many records it is going to give you? 50,000. But if you use a query locator, you are going to get 50 million records. When do you use query locator? When you want to write, sample query and fetch the data. When you want to write a sample query and fetch the data from database, then we go for what? Database dot query locator. When you use a database dot query locator, how many records we are going to fetch? 50 million records. When do you use database dot query locator? When you want to write a sample query and get the data. When you want to write a query and get the records from the database, then we go for what? Database dot query locator. What is the next one we have? When do you use a table? When we want to frame data using a complex logic. If you want to write a proper class, write some logic and give list of record, then we go for what? A table. If you are going for a table, how many records we can give you? If you are going for a table, how many records is going to fetch? Only 50,000. But the point is, a table is given by writing a custom logic. If you want to write your own custom logic and fetch the records, then we go for what? A table. You want to frame a proper class, you want to make a custom logic and give you, then we go for a table. Generally, what is the format we are going to use? Database dot query locator. What is the format we are going to use? Database dot query locator. So start method. What is the purpose of start method? What is the purpose of start method? It is used to fetch the records on which you want to perform the operation. Right. Then we have execute. What is the purpose of execute method? Execute. Logic what you want to implement. Logic that we want to implement. Logic that you want to implement should be defined. So execute method will have what? Logic. Execute method will have what? Logic. Whatever the logic that you want to write, that should be defined within a execute. Whatever the logic that you want to write, that should be defined within a execute. Whatever the logic that you want to write, that should be defined within a execute. Are you getting my point? Okay. Let us see the third one. Finish. What is the syntax of this? Global void you want the adjustment. You want the adjustments. on the adjustment. Okay. Leave it. So we are defining this. So global void execute. We are defining what? Global void execute. What is defined in execute? Whatever the business logic that you want to write, that should be defined within the execute. Whatever the business logic that you want to write, that is defined within the execute. Okay. You open the doors also. Right. So let us see. Whatever the logic that you want to write, that should be defined within the execute method. Whatever the logic that you want to write, that should be defined within the execute method. Now, what is the purpose of finish? Once all the execute methods are completed, whatever the logic you want to write, that should be defined in the finish. Whatever the logic that you want to write, that is defined in the finish. Whatever the logic you want to write, that is defined in the finish. I am trying to write my first batch bits. Look at my first requirement. Fetch all the customer records. Fetch all the customer records. Fetch all the customer records which are owned by fetch all the customer records which are owned by Satish and reassign them to. Now what was my requirement? Fetch all the customer records which are owned by Satish and reassign them to Wilson. Now in the database there are 20,000 records which are owned by Satish. Then what happened? When there are 20,000 records, obviously we need to go for batch. Now, how do you implement a batch? How do you implement a batch? Global class implements the base code. So, now what is the first method we have? Start method. The start method, global database dot. Why you are taking query locator? Because we are writing a query on the customer object, getting the data. Query locator, start. Database dot. Batchable context. Now first I need to get user u equal to select ID from user where last name equal to. Let me check what is the last name of Satish. The first name is Satish. Where first name equal to Satish. Then you want to execute a query. So what is the query you want to execute? Select ID comma owner ID from customer where owner ID equals to what is the query you are writing? Where owner ID equals to UID. So how do you write the UID? Slash single quote owner ID. Because I have to put a single quote after the ID. This is how I wrote the query. I told you, whenever you want to append string values, we will use what? Slash single quote, it will add single quote after the value. Then you want to execute. How do you execute the query now? How do you execute the query now? Listen. Return database dot get query locator. We are going to execute. When you execute the query, what we are going to get? We are going to get the records which are owned by Satish. We are going to get the records which are owned by Satish. Once you get the records which are owned by Satish, then we want to execute. What is the logic we are writing? Global void database dot batchable context list of this out. What is the logic I have to implement? First identify the owner of select ID from user where first name equal to user. If you want to reassign the records to Wilson, you should know the ID of the Wilson. Then what I'm doing for customer C, what are the list of record? Scope. The scope what we have? C dot owner ID equal to dot. Then I'm updating. Update. Update. What did I do? Start method has written a query, fetches the records which are owned by Satish. In the execute method, what we are doing? We are reassigning the records to Wilson. Then what is the final method we have? Global void. Generally, the finish method, what we do is send an email. Generally, the finish method, what we do? Sending an email that following data is modified. Okay. This is how we implement. People have followed the requirement. What did I do? In the start method, what I have done? Fetch the data which is owned by Satish and I reassign the records to Wilson. Now, why I am going for a batch box? Because I am expecting more than 20,000 records in this query. Now, Satish owns more than 20,000 records. Because of that, there is a possibility of hitting what? Governing limits. When there is a possibility of hitting the governing limits, break the operation to number of batches. Now, once you are done, how do you execute? You want to execute only once or you want to execute number of times? If you want to execute only once, you can define directly like this. Create an object for the batch box. Create an object. Create an object. Once you create an object, if you want to execute, I have to give ID, job ID equal to database dot execute. So how are you going to execute? Database dot execute batch, object of the batch, and I give size equal to 5. When you give size equal to 5, what does it mean? Break 5 records into one batch. When you're asking them to break into number of batches, you have to give the size of the batch. So what is the size of the batch I give? 5. Now, once you get the records, break 5 records into one batch, and every batch run the execute method. Right? How you are going to execute the batch next? Database dot execute batch. Then execute. When you execute it, any asynchronous job that is running, it will be registered with what? Async effects job. So go to monitor, jobs, effects job. What happened? Batch mix. How many batch mix are there? Why 2 batch mix? Why 2 batch mix? Because why 2 batch mix? There are records up to 10. How many records are here? 10 records are there. As there are 10 records, then what happened? 2 batches. As there are 10 records, there are 2 batches. Because I told batch size equal to 5. So what happened now? All the records are reassigned to Wilson. All the records are reassigned to Wilson. People have followed. When there is a possibility of hitting the governing limits, when there is a possibility of hitting the governing limits, then we define batch mix. Then we define the operation as batch mix. Right. Let me do one more example.